"You are 11 years late," she said from the doorway, "and you are standing in my gutter." The Duke of Fairholme did not move out of it. The rain was coming off the eaves of the shop in a solid gray rope, and had been going down inside his collar for a quarter of an hour, and he had discovered on the way up Bridge Street that he had no speech prepared at all, only a great many years. "Miss Rushton." Mrs. Rushton, in the town. It saves argument in a business. Clemency Rushton stood in the lit doorway of a circulating library with a ledger under her arm, and looked at him with no more heat than she would have shown a man delivering coals. "There is an inn at the bottom of the hill with a fire in it. You will want that before you want anything from me." "I have not come to want anything." "Then you have wasted a great deal of horseflesh." She stepped back. "Come in out of it. You are frightening my subscribers." He came in. The shop smelled of paste and wet wool and beeswax. 2 rooms knocked into one, shelves to the ceiling, a bindery through an archway with a press and a bench, and 1,100 volumes catalogued in a hand he would have known anywhere. Julian stood dripping on the boards and looked at what she had built, and something in him that had been comfortable for 11 years came quietly apart. He had been 22. She had been 19, the bookseller's daughter at Marden Hollow, with ink on her fingers and an opinion about everything, and he had been going to marry her in the September. He had ended it in a lane in July, in 11 sentences. He could still recite them. He had told her that he had come into an expectation, and that a man with an expectation must be careful of the company he binds himself to, and that she must see it would not do. He had told her she would thank him in 5 years. He had said the word unequal twice. Nobody had made him do it. That was the part he had spent 11 years arranging furniture around. There had been no cruel father, no debt, no threat, no woman with a fortune waiting. His father had not known of the engagement and would very likely not have cared. Julian had done it because he had been 22 and had believed himself destined, and had looked at a girl in a bookshop and calculated. He had got everything he calculated for. He was 30 and a duke, and the estate was solvent, and he had spoken twice in the Lords to general approval. And in April he had sat down to dinner at Fairholme at a table of 14, and gone up afterward, and stood in a gallery for an hour, and realized that he could not remember the last time he had said anything true to anybody. He had ridden to Marden Hollow in May, and found the shop shut and the father dead, and the daughter gone into the town of Ashwell to trade on her own account. It had taken him 5 weeks to bring himself up Bridge Street. "You will have the story from somebody," Clemency said, "so have it from me. My father died in the spring of the year 11. He left £300 of stock and 200 of debt. I sold the Marden shop, paid the debt, came here, took a lease on this, and I have paid every quarter of it myself. 84 subscribers at a guinea a year, and the binding work, and I mend for the grammar school. That is the whole of my history. There is no wretchedness in it, and you are not to look for any." "I did not." "You did. You looked at the shelves as though you expected them to be pitiable." She set the ledger down. "Now, why are you here?" Julian found that he could not answer it standing. "May a chair be asked for?" "You may have the one by the stove. You are ruining my floor." He sat by the stove, in a shop in a market town, with his hat in his hands like a farmer come about a lease. "Because I told you in a lane that you would thank me in 5 years, he said. "And it is 11, and nobody has ever thanked me for anything I did that year, least of all myself." Clemency Rushton went very still, and for the first time he saw the effort it was costing her to be pleasant. "That is a fine speech," she said. "It is the sort of speech a man makes when he has come a long way and wishes to be forgiven before dinner. I will not forgive you before dinner, your grace. I will not forgive you at all, I think, in the way you mean it, because there is nothing left in me to forgive with. It was all used up in about 18 months, and I have not missed it." Her voice did not shake. "But you may come to the shop. It is a public shop. You may not come as a duke. If you come, you will carry books, because my boy has a bad chest, and the top shelves are murder." He carried books for 3 weeks. He took a room at the Barleycorn and sent his valet home, and told his steward that he might be reached at Ashwell, and every morning at 9 he walked up Bridge Street and was set to work. He carried octavos to the top shelves. He held the ends of sheets while she folded them. He learned, badly, to pare leather with a knife, and cut his thumb, and she wrapped it without one word of sympathy and told him to keep it out of the paste. He learned other things. That she opened the shop an hour early on Mondays for the mill girls, who could not come otherwise, and charged them nothing. That she had refused twice to stock a fashionable novel because she thought it dishonest about poverty, and had lost 11 subscribers over it, and had not budged. That she laughed exactly as she had at 19, and that he had spent 11 years forgetting the sound with great success, right up until the first time he heard it again, at which point the forgetting turned out to have been nothing but a lid on a pot. That there was a surgeon in the town, Mr. Weld, who came in on Thursdays and stayed 40 minutes and did not borrow books. Julian asked about him on the 3rd Thursday, and hated himself for asking. "Mr. Weld is a good man," Clemency said, going on with the sewing frame. "He is 39, and he has a practice and a garden and no vices whatever. He has asked me to marry him. He asked me at Whitsun, and he asked me again a fortnight since, and he is content to keep asking, which is more than most men would be. And I have not answered him." The needle went through. "It would be a good bargain. He does not mind the shop. He says I may keep it, and he means it. I should be Mrs. Weld of Ashwell and buried in this churchyard, and there would be nothing wrong with any of it." "Nothing wrong," Julian repeated. "You will not say a word against him," she said, and looked up, and her eyes were perfectly steady. "Not one, your grace. You have no standing for it. You had your chance to have an opinion about who I marry, and you spent it in a lane." That was, he thought afterward, the single most deserved sentence ever addressed to him. He did not say a word against Mr. Weld. He said good morning to him on the Thursday following, and moved a set of ladders out of his way. And Mr. Weld, who was not a fool, looked at the Duke of Fairholme paring leather at a bookbinder's bench, and understood the whole situation in about 4 seconds, and had the decency not to enjoy it. It was the town that broke it. Ashwell had known for 11 years that Mrs. Rushton of Bridge Street had been jilted by a great gentleman. Ashwell had never been told why. And Ashwell, being a market town of 2,000 souls, had supplied a reason of its own, as towns do, and the reason it had supplied was that there must have been something the matter with the girl. Julian heard it in the tap-room of the Barleycorn on a Saturday night, from a corn factor who did not know him. No, there was talk. Bound to be. A man of that sort don't throw over a girl for nothing. Something she did or something she was. She's a close one, that. Never a word about it in 11 year, and if a woman's innocent she talks. He was on his feet with his hand on the back of a chair before he had thought at all, and then he stood there, because he understood 2 things at once, and they arrived together like a door and a wall. The first was that she had carried that for 11 years in a town of 2,000 people, and had opened the shop every morning anyway. The second was that he had made it, and then gone away and left it standing. She came to him at the inn on the Monday, which she had never done, and she was pale. "You must go," Clemency said, "today if you can." Tell me why. Because 4 subscribers gave notice this week, and Mrs. Alderley asked me in the shop in front of the mill girls whether it was true that the gentleman at the barleycorn was an old friend of my father's. Her hands were folded hard in front of her. It has begun again, exactly as it did in the year 11, and it will run its course, and it will cost me the school work first, and then the subscription, and I cannot pay a lease on centum. You have been very good these 3 weeks, and I have liked it more than I can afford to. Now go home, your grace, please. Julian looked at her for a long moment. I will go, he said. There is one thing to be done first, and it is not a thing you will like, and I am going to do it anyway, and afterward you may never speak to me again, and I shall have no complaint. Julian, she had not used his name in 11 years. She stopped as though she had cut herself on it. Wednesday is market day, he said. Go to the shop as usual, do not come out. She came out, of course. The market at Ashwell filled the square from the church wall to the shambles, and it rained on the Wednesday, hard and gray and steady, the way it had rained the day he arrived. At 11 o'clock the Duke of Fairholme walked out of the barleycorn without a hat and climbed the 3 steps of the market cross, and stood there in the rain until the square noticed him, which did not take long. Some of you know who I am, he said. The rest will be told before dinner, so we may save the time. Fairholme, I have been 3 weeks at your inn. 200 faces, and the rain, and the wet canvas of the stalls snapping. 11 years ago I was engaged to marry Clemency Rushton, when she lived at Marden Hollow and was 19 years old, and I broke it off myself, in a lane in July, without cause of any kind. The square went quiet in a way that market squares almost never do. There has been a story in this town for 11 years that there must have been a reason. There was a reason. The reason was that I had come into an expectation and had decided that a bookseller's daughter would be a drag upon it, and I told her so in 11 sentences, and I used the word unequal twice, and I have remembered every word of it every year since because there was nothing else in it worth remembering. No one compelled me. My father did not know. There was no debt, no other woman, no quarrel, and nothing whatever on her side. She was blameless then, and she has been blameless every day since, and she has stood in this town under your arithmetic for 11 years and never once defended herself, because the only defense available to her was to tell you what I was, and she would not do it. He heard somebody say her name at the back of the crowd. He did not look. So I am telling you, the fault was mine entire. If there is a name to be spoken of unkindly in Ashwell, it is Fairholme, and I have broad enough shoulders, and I do not have to live here. Julian came down 1 step. That is the whole of my business. Her lease is her own, her library is her own, her good name is her own and always was, and I have not come to buy anything or to ask anything, and I am going back to Fairholme this afternoon. Good day to you. He came down the steps into 200 people, not knowing what to do with their faces, and he walked out of the square with the rain running off his hair. And he did not look at the door of the library, because if he had looked he would have stayed, and staying was not his to do. The chaise was at the barleycorn at 1 o'clock. He had 1 foot on the step when he heard her. Your Grace. She had come down Bridge Street without a bonnet or a shawl. Her hair was flat with the rain, and there was paste on her cuff, and she was breathing as though she had run the whole way, which, the inn-yard later agreed, she had. Julian took his foot off the step. You have not brought an umbrella, he said, and you will. Be quiet, Clemency said. You stood in the rain. It seemed the correct weather. You stood in the rain in front of the whole of Ashwell and gave them your own name to chew on and asked me for nothing. Her voice was not steady at all now. 11 years I have known exactly what you were, and I built a life that did not require you, and I was proud of it, and I still am. And then you did that. Why did you do that? Because it was owed, Julian said. Not to buy you. Owed. A man who has taken something from a woman for 11 years and then discovers that he can put it back has no business asking what he shall get for it. He turned his hat over in his hands. Marry Mr. Weld. He is a good man with a garden and no vices, and he has never once made you carry a thing you should not have had to carry. I mean that. If you tell me you have accepted him, I shall write and congratulate you, and I shall mean every word. And then I shall not come back to this town, because I would not do that to him. The rain came down between them. No, Clemency said. No. I refused Mr. Weld on Monday evening, before ever I came to the inn, she said. I refused him because I sat down with the ledger and asked myself the honest question, which is not who is good and who is bad, but which man do I want to hear on the stairs? And I have known the answer since the Tuesday you cut your thumb and did not complain about it. Her chin came up, exactly as it had at 19. Do not look pleased. I am furious. You have cost me 4 subscribers, and a great deal of dignity, and 11 years. You may have all of them back with interest, Julian said, and I shall carry the octavos for the rest of my life. You bind very badly. I bind atrociously. I shall improve. You will not, she said, and then she was laughing and crying at the same time in the yard of the barley corn, with the rain going down her collar. And Julian dropped his hat in a puddle and did not notice for 3 days. He took her hands, both of them, paste and all. Clemency Rushton, I am asking you in a wet-in yard because I have already used up the market cross, not from Fairholme and not with anything in my pocket. Only this. 11 years ago a man of 22 looked at you and did a sum, and the sum was wrong, and it has taken him his whole youth to see how wrong. Will you have him? On terms. Any terms? The shop stays, she said. It is mine. I will not be shut up in a gallery with 14 people at dinner. I shall keep the lease and the subscription and Monday mornings for the mill girls, and I shall come and go, and you will not be embarrassed by it in front of the lords. I shall be insufferable about it in front of the lords, said the Duke of Fairholme, and I shall bore them at length. Then yes, Clemency said. They were married in Ashwell Parish Church in the September, 11 years and 2 months after the September that did not happen, and the church was full, because a market town that has been told the truth in the rain will turn out for the end of the story. The library on Bridge Street kept its lease for 40 years. It was managed for the greater part of them by the mill girl who had been first through the door on Monday mornings, and the Duchess of Fairholme came down from the great house on Tuesdays and Fridays and was fierce about the catalogue. There is a shelf in the library at Fairholme, glazed and locked, containing 9 volumes bound in calf so unevenly that a visiting bishop once asked whether the binder had been ill. He was not ill, the Duchess said. He was learning. He is still learning. He has been learning for 20 years and he will not be told. And her husband, who was on the top step of the ladder at the time with an octavo in each hand, said that this was perfectly true, and that he had no intention of being told anything by anybody ever again, having once decided something for himself at the age of 22 and got it entirely wrong.